good point, and I know, David, you're skeptical of my question about whether if Mitch McConnell had given that speech, which was the argument that the House managers spent, a week giving, and then voted to convict and not acquit, could he have brought 10 more or maybe 9 more Republicans along with him? I know you're skeptical, but
it could have happened. I'm not. Yes, I'm just saying. I was looking at the list of senators.
No, but it also speaks to what she was saying about his place as leader.
Exactly. Jamie is spot on. But again, that's why the word leader is so profoundly misused in this notion. It's not unlike what we saw a little bit with Kevin McCarthy and Marjorie Taylor Greene at a certain point. If you are the leader of your party, you want to set the path. And Mitch McConnell is trying to set the path for the Republican Party that he thinks is going to be most successful. That's why he praised Liz Cheney and slammed down Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's why he's giving this rebuke of President Trump, because he actually thinks that just going down the Trump sort of support route is not the way to win Senate seats in the long run, to win back the majority, to win the presidency. And Georgia is the perfect example for this, Dana. You highlighted it correctly, because Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue tied themselves so closely to Donald Trump in the midst of the big lie, in the midst of him setting the groundwork for what occurred on January 6th. While all of that was going on, they tied themselves. Kelly Loeffler, just 2 nights before, right, announcing she's going to join the challenge to the electoral vote certification in the Senate. Well, she's no longer a senator. She's no longer, neither is David Perdue. Going down that route was demonstrably, by the voters in Georgia, the wrong political choice. Totally wrong political choice. Mitch McConnell sees that. He's trying to steer his party in a way, but he also understands, as Jamie is saying, he doesn't want to get so far afield from where the bulk of his conference is. And the bulk of his conference, like the bulk of the Republican Party across the country right now that we see in all the public polling, still is in Trump's camp.
Well, the conference, I'm not so sure what Jamie was saying about the private conversations she has. The people, the senators are probably not there. You're saying
after 4 years of private conversations, I'm not sure they get much credit for that, because the reason that they're private is because they think they will run afoul of
their
voters
constituency. I hear you.
If they were to go public.
And some of the same, they're the very same people who privately criticize and disdain Trump are publicly his most staunch supporters for raw politics, because they know that they can't survive without it. So I agree with you, David. You don't get credit for whispering in the cloakrooms of the Senate that you don't like Trump. McConnell may have had ultimately no choice on this one. That he is still leading a party that is largely Trump's. But I think he may be a little misguided in the view that he can have one foot in Trump land and one foot outside of it and still effectively lead. I think we saw what happened with Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy when he tried to do exactly the same thing, and he got rolled by Trump. He got rolled by Marjorie Taylor Greene. And now it seems very clear who is actually running the party on the House side. I think it'll become pretty clear on the Senate side what's happening there too. And it's not necessarily, I don't think, going to be a McConnell view that Trump needs to be repudiated. I think the louder voices, the Ted Cruzes and the Lindsey Grahams have won the day on this one.
Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think you're going to see it. Listen, a lot of these senators have, maybe not Lindsey Graham, have presidential ambitions, and as the contest to fill the post-Trump void, if Donald Trump doesn't seek the presidency again, which, by the way, some of these Republicans allowed him to have that option still, like I'm going to get big. The Marco Rubios, Rand Pauls, Ted Cruz's, Josh Hawley's, Tom Cottons of the world, I think you're right. I think they are making a calculation that they're not going to be able to successfully court Republican primary voters if they do full Trump repudiation. Even so, I don't think that's why we're hearing speeches from those folks the way we heard Mitch McConnell's.
Yeah, but we're all using the word primary. That's the key difference we have to remind our viewers between the intra-party fight and the fight that they all will have to win depending on the statewide, and then also in a national election. I want to bring in one of the impeachment managers right now, a delegate from the Virgin Islands, Stacey Plaskett. Thank you so much for joining us, giving us Abby and me, your first national post-trial interview here on CNN.
Delegate Plaskett, thanks for being with us. So, so many Republicans came into this impeachment trial clearly with their minds made up. Did you go into this trial thinking that you'd be able to bring 17 Republicans over to the view that Trump was guilty, or was this about the larger principle for Democrats?
All of the impeachment managers as a team made the decision that we were presenting this case to 100 senators, as well as to the American people. And we did that through the evidence. We worked really hard, along with a tremendous team of professional staff, to present a case to the people of what happened on January 6th, and even leading up to January 6th. And I think that there's no question in anyone's mind that the President of the United States incited insurrectionists to not only storm the Capitol, but to try and stop our republic, the peaceful transfer of power. As you heard from Mitch McConnell's own speech, he said the House managers proved the facts. They proved the facts of the case. And he even pointed to the events leading up to that insurrection and the fact that we made that case. They have looked for an excuse as to why not to hold the president accountable, and for that, they're going to have to answer.
Yeah, to that point, what went through your head when you heard McConnell essentially repeating your case to you after just having voted to acquit the former president, Donald Trump?
Just disappointment in an individual who did not have the courage to think that his country was more important than his party and his leadership. That was what I felt was great disappointment. As a parent and as an American, I think, however, that the thing that has given me hope is having 7 Republican senators stand up for what's right, and knowing that the overwhelming majority of Americans believe in the events as we saw it and as we demonstrated by absolutely overwhelming evidence. All of those senators were witnesses to the crime themselves. And so I think that the evidence was there, and history will judge those who did not support the conviction.
You said that you made your case on the evidence. You did not need witnesses. It would not have made a difference in bumping that number up higher than 7 Republicans, which is completely understandable. As you said, even Mitch McConnell basically said that. However, there are some Democrats that I'm hearing from, you probably as well, watching what happened and thinking that Senate Democrats, in their deal-making with Republicans, undercut you and other House managers by agreeing to go forward without witnesses.
I think that, I'm not going to get into what the negotiations among Senate members are, but listen, we rested our case before the defense did, and we were pleased that we had overwhelming evidence that demonstrated the facts and that article of impeachment. That Donald Trump did what we say he did. It was then up to the defense to put forward a case. They did not, in my opinion. I think everyone was underwhelmed by what they said. They tried to come up with different theories that never addressed the issues at hand. And so on the night before today, last night, we found out that our colleague, Jamie Herrera Butler, did in fact issue a statement which additionally corroborated what we had already proven. We came in this morning, made a motion for a witness, and the witness was her, as you saw, and we wanted that statement on the record. We got that. Along with the Republican defense counsel, the counsel for the president, saying that he possibly wanted 100 witnesses. He didn't get that. And so I think what you saw after that was senators had made their minds, made their decisions, and those senators who voted against found an excuse not to do the right thing. And I know that people are disappointed, that Americans, listen, nobody wants to lose. I wanted to win this case along with all of the impeachment managers. I think you could see that in the amount of passion as well as meticulous work that we put into this case. And so finding a reason as to why these senators wouldn't do that just baffles most people's mind. And I think it's that they have not put their country above themselves or above their party.
We heard League Manager Jamie Raskin just a few moments ago say that he was the one who decided not to call Mike Pence and other potential witnesses. As a prosecutor and as someone who, as you said, you were trying to build a record for history, never mind whether or not you had enough evidence. like to have heard from people like that for the record books, for the history books, regardless of whether it changed votes?
Let's remember that in the first impeachment trial, we were requesting the witness of Mr. McCann, right? That's still in litigation. That witness has still not come forward. And so are the American people going to wait for another year of us litigating to have the vice president come forward, who is not going to be a friendly witness? Kevin McCarthy was not going to be a friendly witness. They were going to drag this out in courts as long as possible. We believe that the evidence has shown what in fact happened in an overwhelming manner, and that history will judge it that way, as well as the American people saw what happened on January 6th. And, you know, the case was presented and the evidence was there. And whether those individuals came forward and spoke is never to be known. You know, one of the things as a prosecutor, you don't of your own volition necessarily call a witness that you don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what Mike Pence is going to say. He has, although he told the president he was not going to follow his last instruction to obstruct the constitutional powers and duty that he had to certify the election, he went along with him for almost 4 years prior to that in all of the despicable things that this president did. So would he have told the truth? Who knows?
Yesterday afternoon, for those who have been watching these hearings, you took a moment to criticize the defense counsel's prevalent use of black women and people of color, talking about fighting in these video montages that they played. I want to play a little bit of that moment for our viewers.
I'll briefly say the defense counsels put a lot of videos out in their clip after clip of black women talking about fighting for a cause or an issue or a policy. It was not lost on me as so many of them were people of color and women, black women like myself, who are sick and tired of being sick and tired for our children, your children, our children. Some things happened that were violent, but there were also things that gave some of us black women great comfort. Seeing Amish people from Pennsylvania standing up with us, members of Congress fighting up with us. And so I thought we were past that. I think maybe we're not.
There's no question that what happened on January 6th has an undercurrent of white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and so much more. What message do you think this acquittal verdict sends to the white supremacists and domestic terrorists and to the people that they targeted, not just on January 6th, but in general?
Well, I think you've seen through the actions of some members of both the House and the Senate that they agree with some of those actions. Some of them agreeing with it on January 6th and immediately thereafter, and some potentially by their vote. And I think that we need to be careful of what we have going on in this country. The kind of rhetoric as well as actions that have been condoned and fanned and flamed by the past president, Donald Trump. But I want everyone also to be aware that the majority of senators did not agree with that and voted against it. And the majority of members of the House in impeaching President Trump also agreed that that is not America. And so that as well should give us hope. There's a lot of work that we have to do. Listen, I believe that as a black woman, I had a responsibility to say something. If we're put in those places and put in those positions, that to much is given, much is required. And that was not an opportunity and not a place that I would not speak about what they were attempting to do in terms of dog whistles and gaslighting that was happening in those videos. And I think that we're going to continue to see people stand up, people like yourself, people like me, people like Dana Bash and others who believe in what's right and are going to call it when they see it.
You're also a prosecutor, and there's now the possibility that Trump could be charged criminally or civilly for some of the things that happened on January 6th. And before that, would you bring that case? Would you recommend that the Biden Department of Justice bring a criminal case against Trump?
Well, my job right now is to be a member of the House of Representatives. I'm not going to try and tell both the Justice Department, who will be run by amazing, fine people. I want to shout out my sister, Kristen Clark, who's heading up the Civil Rights Division coming up. And then to those individuals who are in the New York, the Attorney General, as well as in Fulton County. They're going to make decisions that are appropriate for their people, for the American people, and we'll wait and see.
Would you agree, though, that he was criminally liable at this point?
Listen, I think that the charges that we brought were in fact criminal. I think that we proved that he is in fact an insider-in-chief. That is in fact criminal for an individual to raise themselves up, to try and destroy this republic. He led an insurrection, albeit an attempted one that failed, but an insurrection against the republic. That is a high crime and a misdemeanor.
Before we let you go, we wanted to ask you to just reflect on what it's like to be a House manager in such a historic event like an impeachment in the trenches with your Democratic colleagues, many of whom, I should say, including yourself, are part of the younger generation of the Democratic caucus.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that I'm younger. I don't know if my children would agree with that. But what I will say is that, you know, no one could be finer than to have a lead manager like Jamin Raskin, who I also had the pleasure many, many years ago of being his student in law school as well. And so I think that there was a camaraderie, but also a teamwork, and knowing that we were there for a higher good, to demonstrate that we will fight for this republic. Everyone just dug in. There was no great personalities. No one was better than the other. Everybody did the work and really tried to be very thoughtful, supportive, even critical of one another as we tried to prepare for this trial. Because who would have thought that a president of the United States would try and overthrow our government? And so we saw that as something that was profoundly important. And I think we and the tremendous, tremendous staff that was with us worked that way.
Impeachment Manager Stacey Plaskett, you are a delegate from the United States Virgin Islands, and we are grateful for your time this evening.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. Very interesting on a whole bunch of levels. I just want to start with your really good question about the criminal charges, because that is the next step. The question is whether or not the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, or perhaps there's some jurisdiction on a state and local level will do something unprecedented, which is to pursue charges against a former president.
And there are layers to this. You heard her mention New York. You heard her mention Fulton County. What's happening in Fulton County is directly related to the impeachment charges. It's about Trump's call with the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. But there are a lot of other cases involving Trump's tax returns and business dealings and all kinds of things that have potential criminal liability for him too. There's also a huge question of whether the Biden Justice Department even touches this hot potato, and I'm not sure that that really has a clear answer. But she seemed to think that the details of the charges that they put in that impeachment article also are a roadmap for criminal charges, and how that is carried out is very much an open question, and who carries that out is very much an open question.
You say we don't have a clear answer with DOJ, Biden DOJ pursuing charges, but we do have an upcoming confirmation hearing with the Attorney General now.
He's going to be asked about that.
There's getting a line of questioning as to whether or not he intends to pursue charges as AG for the former president against the United States. I also just think to hear Deputy Plaskett make the case, as you asked, understanding how near impossible this month is going to be to climb to get 17 Senate Republicans to vote to convict, that can diminish the seriousness of purpose, the passion, the meticulous preparation that was put into place here, because they understood. She just made so clear the role in history this has. When history looks back on this episode, it's going to be the House manager's version of events of this episode that is the historical record.
You know what also struck me about her? You were asking her about witnesses and this debate about whether you call them to hear from them, whether it changes votes or not. But she made an important point about the way in which the issue of witnesses from the last impeachment trial still hasn't been settled.
Yep.
That Don McGahn case, she's right, is still up in the air. And that actually becomes, I think, a real question for the Republicans who voted against impeachment on constitutional grounds, and for Mitch McConnell. If you are a president and you are impeached well before the end of your term, could you just simply hold the case open, push back on subpoenas from the legislative branch in order to extend this past your term and get out of jail free? I mean, it's a real question now that Congress feels. We saw the impeachment managers for 2 trials now believe that they cannot get witnesses who are opposing witnesses to come before them and testify. That's a very, very serious thing that has really profound implications for this problem.
And the only time that we've seen that happen in modern history, and I don't know if there were witnesses in the first Johnson impeachment, but for our purposes in our history, the only time we've seen witnesses is when it's part of a deal. It's because one side wants a witness so badly that they're willing to give up, that they're willing to give in to the other side to bring one of their witnesses, and that obviously wasn't going to happen in this case for a variety of reasons.
Or the last case, as Abby pointed out, and to your point, Abby, I think this is your point, correct me if I'm wrong, but the overall potential diminishment of impeachment as a remedy is what you're discussing.